Hey everyone, and welcome to a guide for Kingdom 2 Crowns. This time we'll be looking at the mounts from the Norse Lands DLC. I'll be going over the artifacts in another video, as well as a few good synergies with the mounts mentioned here, so check that out afterwards, but for now, let's get started. Almost all of the mounts in the Norse Lands campaign are new to the game, although some have similar abilities to previous mounts. Your starting horse is the same as the starting horse in the other campaigns, and can be considered to have normal or average speed and stamina, which we'll compare the other mounts to later. On the first island, you'll find the Day-Night horse, which costs 1 gem to unlock and 4 coins to mount. It doesn't have an ability like most mounts, instead its main purpose is to help unlock the Yalahorn artifact. Other than that, the mount's skin changes colour from white at midday to dark blue at midnight. This can be useful for telling the time, as it gives you a bit of a warning that night's coming if you're out exploring, but it's not got much use beyond that. The horse also moves a little quicker than normal at midday and midnight, and turns red during a blood moon. This mount isn't great, because it doesn't have any abilities, but the Yalahorn artifact can be really useful, so it's worth getting the mount just to unlock that, and then ditching it for another mount when possible. On the second island you'll find 2 mounts. The first is the reindeer, which costs 1 gem and 3 coins, and is a reskin of the stag mount. It moves slower than average when walking or running in open plains, but is quicker in forests, and its ability is to tame moose after being near them for a couple of seconds. The moose then follow you until they get attacked. This makes it a great mount for accumulating lots of coins quickly, as you can usually round up at least 3 or 4 moose in a single day, if not more, with each one dropping 3 coins when they're killed. And you can do this alongside exploring or recruiting any villagers from camps deep in the woods. It's worth remembering that moose only spawn in forests, so if you clear a lot of trees then this mount won't be as profitable. Also, your villagers won't attack moose at night for some reason, not quite sure why. The reindeer is generally a good mount to pick, as it's cheap and the extra coins from its ability are always useful, but I personally prefer some of the other mounts for later in the game. The second mount found on the island is Freya's chariot, or the cat chariot, which costs 3 gems and 7 coins. As its name suggests, it's a chariot pulled by a couple of cats. Its main ability is a temporary burst of speed, which lasts around 15 seconds, with a 30-second cooldown from when you use it, allowing you to have it active roughly half the time, and get around very quickly. It can also graze anywhere, meaning you essentially have unlimited stamina. Its final ability is that it can tame cats when you stand near them, which is needed for the Here Kitty 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 achievement in Norse Lands. That's a fun one to say. To tame cats you have to stand next to them for a couple of seconds, like with the reindeer, and then lead them to a farm. Once they're at a farm, cats will occasionally hunt rodents, which generates a few coins, but they'll also play with any nearby coins on the ground, sometimes knocking them into the water. So they're not exactly a big money earner, just a fun little thing to have around your kingdom. Getting cats to spawn takes a little work. You have to have a vagrant camp or merchant camp within your walls. This just needs you to find a camp that's quite close to your walls and has an area of plains nearby on the other side of the camp. That way you can build a wall there, or get your builders to clear trees backwards towards your kingdom until a good spot appears to build walls. There's a good chance you'll come across at least one camp like this across the islands, so it's not something you have to worry about too much, just keep an eye out for it if you're going for the achievement. Overall, the cat chariot is a pretty decent mount, giving you plenty of mobility, but doesn't add much beyond that, so there's a couple of other mounts I prefer. On the third island you'll find Sleipnir, which costs 3 gems and 12 coins. Aside from having a really cool design, Sleipnir moves faster than average, has regular stamina, and grazes like a regular horse. Its ability is to charge forward a short distance, knocking back any greed you collide with and leaving a trail of fire behind you. This charge also makes the Crusher vulnerable to arrows, however, you may take a couple of hits from greedlings whilst charging at a group of them, and you could risk losing the dog if you have it. If you're fine with the risk, you can charge into greed and then immediately turn around, run through your fire and back to safety. The safer way to use this ability is to charge away from greed, towards your walls, and leaving a trail of fire behind you for the greed to run through. This is especially useful for dealing with breeders, as the only other way to create fire is with the Fire Tower Hermit, which you can't get until the third island, and each tower takes quite a lot of coins to get set up. The charge isn't as useful when attacking portals or the cave, because it doesn't do any damage to portals, and the fire will stop your knights and archers from moving, so it's best used with caution. This is a great mount overall, and probably the most versatile, able to help out massively on defense while still having good mobility. Plus it looks really cool, so that's an added bonus. The fourth island has the Kelpie, or water horse, which costs 3 gems and 10 coins. It moves a little slower than average, but can graze anywhere, which makes up for the slower speed as you can pretty much constantly run. Its main ability is to create waves that push back the greed, just like the Griffin's ability, but it can also affect breeders and crushers. And it's useful on both attack and defense, as it can stop your walls and knights from taking as many hits. The waves can also put out fire, which is a bit useless, but it's unlikely to happen very often, so it's not really a negative. During winters, the Kelpie freezes and gets a new ability. Instead of creating waves, it creates ice walls, which act like the Golem's walls from the Deadlands campaign. You can create as many walls as you want, with a small cooldown between each one, but only 3 walls can be active at one time. So when you create a 4th wall, the oldest wall you placed will melt. Each wall can take around 30 hits from a regular greedling before breaking, or will last for 1 minute before melting naturally. This is another great defensive ability, as you can place the ice walls just in front of your regular walls if you stand in the right place, stopping your walls from taking any damage while your defences deal with the greed. This is one of my favourite mounts due to the decent mobility from being able to graze anywhere and the versatile abilities that it has. And again, it looks pretty cool, especially in winter. On the 5th island, you'll find the Golden Boar, or Gullenbursty, which costs 3 gems and 12 coins. This mount is very slow and has low stamina, so it's awful for trying to get around the islands. Its ability roots around in the ground for food, which counts as grazing, partially making up for the low stamina, but definitely not enough to make it a good mount for exploring. And it also won't graze by itself, so you need to make sure you actively use the ability in order to graze. Another part of the ability is that it also sometimes digs up 3 coins, similar to the Unicorn's ability, but it does this with a relatively low probability, so it may take several uses before digging up coins. Fortunately, the ability has no cooldown, so you can use it repeatedly. However, this is a bit of a waste of time. The final part of the ability is that it provides some major buffs to nearby farm plots when you use it. It immediately grows the plots a little, getting them closer to harvest, and also increasing the harvest yield from 6 coins to 12. You can only apply this buff once to a plot per harvest, but this still means that you can make a pretty ridiculous amount of coins in a short amount of time. If you've got a stable, then this is definitely a mount you'll want to grab, as you'll be able to use Gullenbursty during the day to get loads of coins from your farms, then swap to another mount for defense or attacking portals. Without a stable, it's still worth checking this mount out when you get to the island, but I'd probably switch to something a bit more mobile before leaving. Something else worth noting is that Gullenbursty's ability doesn't affect berry bushes in winter, so you'll probably want to switch to another mount when winter comes, because you're not going to get as much profit from this one. Finally, the 6th island is home to Fenrir, which costs 3 gems and 10 coins. Fenrir is basically a combination of the dire wolf from the Challenge Island and the warhorse. Its ability is a large leap forward followed by 2 smaller leaps, just like the dire wolf, with each one dealing a decent amount of damage to any animals, greed or portals in your way. You can change direction between leaps, but the damage it does is pretty inconsistent, so if you leap at a group of greedlings, you're unlikely to hit all of them, and some of them will probably hit you back, causing you to lose coins and maybe the dog if you've got it. On top of this, the ability also applies the warhorse's protection buff to nearby allies, making them invulnerable for a short amount of time. This only has a few good uses, helping protect your troops as they attack portals, helping them flee when your walls are breached, or combining it with the Hell's Skull artefact, but we'll cover that last one in the artifacts video. The leaping attack can be used whenever, so long as you have stamina, but the protection buff has a 30-second cooldown, so not every leap will activate it. You'll hear a noise and see Fenrir flashing when the buff is ready to use again. Fenrir can only graze by howling at the moon, so it isn't as easy to restore stamina compared to most other mounts, which hurts its mobility. Personally, I'm not a massive fan of this mount. It can be useful, but the attack is too inconsistent, and the limited grazing means that there are better options to go with. So that's all the mounts covered. It's hard to say which one is definitely the best, as it depends a lot on your playstyle and what artifact you're using, but there's a lot of solid choices. I think Sleipnir is probably the coolest and one of the most versatile, giving good mobility and a strong ability for defense against blood moons. The Kelpie is a close second for me, even though it's a little slower. The ability to graze anywhere is a real positive, and both its abilities are useful for defense and offense. The stag is a very strong choice early on, as it's cheap and allows you to earn a good amount of coins before you have access to Sleipnir or the Kelpie. Gull and Bursty isn't really essential, but can be really useful if you find yourself struggling for coins, and can be used alongside other mounts in a stable in some speedrun strategies. The cat chariot is only really needed for the achievement, otherwise I don't think it's as useful as the other mounts. Fenrir just isn't that good unless they improve its attack so it can hit greed more consistently. And finally, the day-night horse is worth getting if you want the Yalahorn artifact, which is pretty crazy and can be used to skip portals, but we'll discuss that more in the next video. Other than that, it's not worth using over the other mounts. So that's everything for this time. Hopefully it's given you a good look at all the mounts and helped you pick which ones you want to try out. Check out the artifacts video after this for more Norse Lands info, and if you're looking for more tips and guides, then check out some of my other videos. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.